all walks of the publishing industry. I'm Christy Stratus, historical suspense and historical fantasy author, in case you couldn't tell. And my awesome co-hosts are epic fantasy author Richard H. Stevens and sci-fi author David M. Kelly. Lurking for Legends is an interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests, probably pointing in all the wrong places, or comment on what you hear in this show. You guys are going to want to comment tonight because this is going to be one of our funnest for sure. So tonight we are really excited to welcome back our previous live read guests, JD Estrada and Maggie Lynn Heron-Heidel. Welcome.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
We're so glad to have you back for this really, really special episode. Thank you, CJ. Hey, Alexandra. So tonight, in case you didn't know, we are going to be doing Lurking for Legends Goes Wild. What did you call it, David? Lurking Goes Wild? Is that it?
Yep.
Yeah, Lurking Goes Wild. So we are going to be performing part of the play, The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. And that is why we are dressed like this. So thank you, Hillary. Before we get started, we're just going to let JD and Maggie introduce themselves. They're both authors and they do a lot of different kinds of things. So with that being said, Maggie, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your writing, and everything else you do?
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I'm Maggie Lynn, obviously, and I am a sci-fi and fantasy author as well as a filmmaker. I'm into a little bit of everything, and tonight is right up my alley because I love doing period pieces like this, especially on film. I did Jane Eyre a couple of years ago, so this should be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's trivia that I didn't even know. Very exciting.
I was the mean aunt from that, so this should hopefully be a more pleasant part for me, right?
I love it. I love it. And how about you, JD?
Greetings, fellow humans. My name is JD Estrada. I'm a Puerto Rican author who decided to live in Atlanta because, I don't know, I wanted to see the real life Walking Dead. I don't know. That was part of the plans. I'm a multi-genre author. Some people say that means that I'm a jack of all trades. I would like to think myself a joker of all trades and just fit in nicely to whatever comes through. 19 books. That includes poetry, nonfiction, bilingual, middle grade fantasy, urban fantasy, and horror. And a partridge in a pear tree, apparently. In terms of stage direction and acting, this is pretty much the extent. This and the other library, I think that's the extent of my acting experience. So pardon me.
You just hit the big times, JD. This is it, yeah.
Bringing the stardom.
So
we also have prizes tonight.
Yes.
Yes, we do have prizes tonight. How exactly is that going to work?
I think anybody who makes a comment gets put in the hat for the prize.
Perfect.
Yeah. Sounds good. Are we going to do it individually or are we going to do it globally?
I think it individually just gives more people
I think that's a good idea for sure.
Okay.
You don't get to choose who you win.
You're stuck with us. Excellent.
So we had a question. Alexander Remy asked a question, and I don't know if anyone's comfortable with this. I'm from Cambridge, Ontario, just north of the border, about an hour north of Buffalo and about an hour south of Toronto. So we're kind of in the middle. We're probably the most landlocked city in all of Southern Ontario. So I'm from Cambridge.
Awesome. I'm from New Jersey. That's it. New Jersey. You know it.
I'm originally from England, but I now live in Northern Ontario.
And I'm up in Connecticut, where everything is pretty much frozen right now. So.
Oh my God, yeah.
You might as well be part of Canada then, yeah.
Yeah, imagine you guys get a lot worse up there than we do. So.
Oh. How about you, JD?
I'm right now in Atlanta.
Awesome.
Yeah. But home is always going to be Puerto Rico. And eventually, if I get mad, people are going to go, he's Puerto Rican.
No, that's awesome. So this is our 100th episode. Before we start, I just want to say thank you to Christy and Dave. Those two have been instrumental in making the show what it is. I couldn't have done it without the two of them. So thank you, Dave and Christy, for being there for 100 episodes. You guys are amazing, and hopefully we can carry it on into the new year.
You're welcome, sir.
Enjoyed every moment.
And what do we got here? And I also want to give a shout out to an unsung hero that we have behind the scenes, Caroline Davidson. She is the techie behind everything. Without her, none of this would happen. She does all the work in the background. She does the graphics. She does setting everything up. She sends out stuff, the emails to the guests before and after. And so anything that goes on other than the hour that we're here having fun, she's looking after all that. So she actually does all the work and we get all the glory. So
Thank you, CJ.
Thanks, CJ.
She's been there right from the start, and she's really, without her, we couldn't have done this. So anyway, let's jump right in. We're going to do the first act in the play, The Importance of Being Earnest. And I'm going to be playing Algernon. JD is Lane. He's Algernon's butler. Dave is Ernest and Jack / and you'll find out more about that in a minute. Maggie is Lady Bracknell and Augusta. And Christy is Gwendolyn Fairfax. So,
and I'll do just quickly, I meant to explain, I'm glad that I just remembered, that we do have stage directions and you're just going to see us do them. We're not going to read like the stage directions or anything like that. It's not the same as having narration in a novel, you know? So since this is a play, we're just going to act on them. So everyone you see here is off stage and only the people with their face actually showing and moving and everything are the ones who are actively in the scene. So you guys know. So we're going to do it like a real play.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be fun. And the only stage direction we're going to get is right at the beginning where our butler is going to read the opening part of it to get us started. So if everybody's ready, I think we're ready to jump in. And I'm going to go off screen here too, just for a minute. And yep, go ahead there, Lane.
Morning room in Algernon's flat in Half Moon Street. The room is luxuriously and artistically furnished. The sound of a piano is heard in the adjoining room.
Did you hear what I was playing, Lane?
I didn't think it polite to listen, sir.
I'm sorry for that. For your sake, I don't play accurately. Anyone can play accurately, but I play with wonderful expression. As far as the piano is concerned, sentiment is my forte. I keep science for life.
Yes, sir.
And speaking of the science of life, have you got the cucumber sandwiches cut for Lady Bracknell?
Yes, sir.
Why, is that a bachelor's establishment? Oh, and by the way, Lane, I see from your book that on Thursday night, when Lord Shoreman and Mr. Worthing were dining with me, 8 bottles of champagne are entered as having been consumed.
Yes, sir. 8 bottles and a pint.
Why? Is that a bachelor's establishment? The servants invariably drink the champagne? I ask merely for information.
I attribute it to the superior quality of the wine, sir. I have often observed that in married households, the champagne is rarely a first-rate brand.
Good heavens. Is marriage so demoralizing as that?
I believe it is a very pleasant state, sir. I have had very little experience of it myself up to the present. I have only been married once. That was in consequence of a misunderstanding between myself and a young person.
I don't know that I'm much interested in your family life, Lane.
No, sir. It is not a very interesting subject. I never think of it myself.
Very natural, I'm sure. That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Lane's views on marriage seem somewhat lax. Really, if the lower orders don't set us a good example, what on earth is the use of them? They seem, as a class, to have absolutely no sense of moral responsibility.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
How are you, my dearest Ernest? What brings you to town?
Oh, pleasure, pleasure. What else should bring one anywhere? Eating as usual, I see, Algie.
I believe it is customary in good society to take some slight refreshment at 5 o'clock. Where have you been since last Thursday?
In the country.
What on earth do you do there?
When one is in town, one amuses oneself. When one is in the country, one amuses other people. It is excessively boring.
And who are the people you amuse?
Oh, neighbors, neighbors.
Got nice neighbors in your port of Shropshire?
Perfectly horrid. Never speak to one of them.
How immensely you must amuse them. By the way, Shropshire is your county, is it not?
Hey, Shropshire? Yes, of course. Hello. Why all these cups? Why cucumber sandwiches? Why such reckless extravagance in one so young? Who is coming to tea?
Oh, merely Aunt Augusta and Gwendolen.
How perfectly delightful.
Yes, that is all very well, but I'm afraid Aunt Augusta won't quite approve of your being here.
May I ask why?
My dear fellow, the way you flirt with Gwendolen is perfectly disgraceful. It's almost as bad as the way Gwendolen flirts with you.
I'm in love with Gwendolen. I have come up to town expressly to propose to her.
I thought you'd come up for pleasure. I call that business.
How utterly unromantic you are.
I really don't see anything romantic in proposing. It is very romantic to be in love, but there's nothing romantic about a definite proposal. Why, one may be accepted, one usually is, I believe, then the excitement is all over. The very essence of romance is uncertainty. If I ever get married, I'll certainly try to forget the fact.
I have no doubt about that, dear Algie. The divorce court was specially invented for people whose memories are so curiously constituted.
Oh, there is no use speculating on that subject. Divorces are made in heaven. Please, don't touch the cucumber sandwiches. They are ordered specifically for Aunt Augusta.
Well, you have been eating them all the time.
That is quite a different matter. She is my aunt. Have some bread and butter. The butter is good for Gwendolen. Gwendolen is devoted to bread and butter.
And very good bread and butter it is, too.
Well, my dear fellow, you need not eat as if you're going to eat at all. You behave as if you were married to her already. You're not married to her already, and I don't think you ever will be.
Why on earth do you say that?
Well, in the first place, girls never marry the men they flirt with. Girls don't think it right.
Oh, that's nonsense.
It isn't. It's a great truth. It accounts for the extraordinary number of bachelors that one sees all over the place. In the second place, I don't give my consent.
Your consent?
My dear fellow, Gwendolen is my first cousin, and before I allow you to marry her, you'll have to clear up the whole question of Cecily.
Cecily? What on earth do you mean? What do you mean, Algie, by Cecily? I don't know anyone of the name of Cecily.
Bring me that cigarette case Mr. Worthing left in the smoking room the last time he dined here.
Do you mean to say you've had my cigarette case all this time? I wish to goodness you had let me know. I've been writing frantic letters to Scotland Yard about it. I was very nearly offering a large reward.
Well, I wish you would offer one. I happen to be more than usually hard up.
There's no good offering a large reward now that the thing is found. Thank you, Lane.
I think that is rather mean of you, Ernest, I must say. However, it makes no matter. For now that I look at the inscription inside, I find that the thing isn't yours after all.
Of course it's mine. You've seen me with it 100 times, and you have no right whatsoever to read what is written inside. It's a very ungentlemanly thing to read a private cigarette case.
Oh, it is absurd to have a hard and fast rule about one what one should read and what one shouldn't. More than half of modern culture depends on what one shouldn't read.
I'm quite aware of the fact, and I don't propose to discuss modern culture. It isn't the sort of thing one should talk of in private. I simply want my cigarette case back.
Yes, but this isn't your cigarette case. This cigarette case is a present from someone of the name of Cecily, and you said you didn't know anyone of that name.
Well, if you want to know, Cecily happens to be my aunt.
Your aunt?
Yes, charming old lady she is, too. Lives in Tunbridge Wells. Just give it back to me, Algie.
But why does she call herself Little Cecily if she is your aunt and lives at Tunbridge Wells? From Little Cecily with her fondest love.
My dear fellow, what on earth is there in that? Some ants are tall, some ants are not tall. That is a matter that surely an ant may be allowed to decide for herself. You seem to think that every ant should be exactly like your aunt. That is absurd. For heaven's sake, give me back my cigarette case.
Yes, but why does your aunt call you her uncle? From Little Cecily with the fondest love to her dear Uncle Jack. There is no objection, I admit, to an aunt being a small aunt, but why an aunt, no matter what her size be, should call her own nephew her uncle, I can't quite make out. Besides, your name isn't Jack at all. It's Ernest.
It isn't Ernest, it's Jack.
You have always told me it was Ernest. I have introduced you to everyone as Ernest. You answer to the name of Ernest. You look as if your name was Ernest. You're the most earnest-looking person I've ever saw in my life. It is perfectly absurd you're saying that your name isn't Ernest. It's on your cards. Here's one of them. Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. I'll keep this as proof that your name is Ernest. If you attempt to deny it to me, or to Gwendolyn, or to anyone else.
Well, my name is Ernest in town and Jack in the country, and the cigarette case was given to me in the country.
Yes, but that does not account for the fact that your small Aunt Cecily, who lives in Tunbridge Wells, calls you her dear uncle. Come, old boy, you'd better have the thing out at once.
My dear Algie, you talk exactly as if you were a dentist. It is very vulgar to talk like a dentist when one isn't a dentist. It produces a false impression.
Well, that is exactly what dentists always do. Now, go on. Tell me the whole thing. I may mention that I have always suspected of you being a confirmed and secret Bunburyist, and I'm quite sure of it now.
Bunburyist? What on earth do you mean by a Bunburyist?
I'll reveal it to you, the meaning of that incomparable expression, as soon as you are kind enough to inform me why you are Ernest in town and Jack in the country.
Well, produce my cigarette case first.
Here it is. Now, produce your explanation and pray make it improbable.
My dear fellow, there's nothing improbable about my explanation at all. In fact, it's perfectly ordinary. Old Mr. Thomas Cardew, who adopted me when I was a little boy, made me in his will guardian to his granddaughter, Miss Cecily Cardew. Cecily, who addresses me as her uncle from motives of respect that you could not possibly appreciate, lives at my place in the country under the charge of her admirable governess, Miss Prism.
Where's that place in the country, by the way?
That is nothing to you, dear boy. You are not going to be invited. I may tell you candidly that the place is not in Shropshire.
I suspected that, my dear fellow. I have been buried all over Shropshire on 2 separate occasions. Now go on. Why are you Ernest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear Algie, I don't know whether you will be able to understand my real motives. You are hardly serious enough. When one is placed in the position of guardian, one has to adopt a very high moral tone on all subjects. It's one's duty to do so. And as a high moral tone can hardly be said to conduce very much to either one's health or one's happiness, in order to get up to town, I have always pretended to have a younger brother of the name of Ernest who lives in Albany and gets into the most dreadful scrapes. That, my dear Algie, is the whole truth, pure and simple.
The truth is rarely pure and simple. Modern life would be very tedious if it were either, and modern literature a complete impossibility.
That wouldn't be at all a bad thing.
Literary criticism is not your forte, my dear fellow. Don't try it. You should leave that to people who haven't been at a university. They do it so well in the daily papers. What you really are is a Bunburyist. I was quite right in saying you're a Bunburyist. You're one of the most advanced Bunburyists I know.
What on earth do you mean?
You have invented a very useful younger brother called Ernest, in order that you may be able to come to town as often as you like. I have invented an invaluable permanent invalid called Bunbury, in order that I may be able to go down into the country whenever I choose. Bunbury is perfectly invaluable. If it wasn't for Bunbury's extraordinary bad health, for instance, I wouldn't be able to dine with you at Willis tonight, for I have been really engaged to Aunt Augusta for more than a week.
I haven't asked you to dine with me anywhere tonight.
Oh, no. You are absurdly careless about sending out invitations. It is very foolish of you. Nothing annoys people so much as not receiving invitations.
You had much better dine with your Aunt Augusta.
I haven't the smallest intention of doing anything to be of the kind. To begin with, I dine there on Monday, and once a week is quite enough to dine with one's own relations. In the second place, whenever I do dine there, I am always treated as a member of the family and sent down to the either no woman at all or two. In the third place, I know perfectly well whom she will place me next to. Tonight, she will place me next to Mary Farquhar, who always flirts with her own husband across the dinner table. That is not very pleasant. Indeed, it is not very decent. And that sort of thing is enormously on the increase. The amount of women in London who flirt with their own husbands is perfectly scandalous. It looks so bad, it is simply washing one's clean linen in public. Besides, now that I know you to be a confirmed Bunburyist, I naturally want to talk to you about Bunburying. I want to tell you the rules.
I'm not a Bunburyist at all. If Gwendolen accepts me, I'm going to kill my brother. Indeed, I think I'll kill him in any case. Cecily is a little too much interested in him. It's rather a bore. So I'm going to get rid of Ernest, and I strongly advise you to do the same with your invalid friend, who has the absurd name.
Nothing will induce me to part with Bunbury. And if you ever get married, which seems to me extremely problematic, you will be very glad to know Bunbury. A man who marries without knowing Bunbury has a very tedious time of it.
Now, this is nonsense. If you marry a charming girl like Gwendolen, and she is the only girl I ever saw in my life that I would marry, I certainly won't want to know Bunbury.
Then your wife will. You don't seem to realize that in married life, 3 is company and 2 is none.
That, my dear young friend, is the theory that the corrupt French drama has been propounding for the last 50 years.
Yes, and that the happy English home has proved in half the time.
For heaven's sake, don't try to be cynical. It's perfectly easy to be cynical.
My dear fellow, it isn't easy to be anything nowadays. There's such a lot of beastly competition about. Ah, that must be Aunt Augusta. Only relatives or creditors ever ring in that Wagnerian way. Now, if I get her out of the way for 10 minutes so that you can have an opportunity for proposing to Gwendolen, may I dine with you tonight at Willie's?
I suppose so, if you want to.
Yes, but you must be serious about it. I hate people who are not serious about meals. It is so shallow of them.
Lady Bracknell and Miss Fairfax.
Good afternoon, dear Algernon. I hope you are behaving very well.
I'm feeling very well, Aunt Augusta.
That's not quite the same thing. In fact, the two things rarely go together.
Dear me, Gwendolen, you are smart.
I'm always smart. Am I not, Mr. Worthing?
You are quite perfect, Miss Fairfax.
Oh, I hope I am not that. It would leave no room for developments, and I intend to develop in many directions.
I'm sorry if we're a little late, Algernon, but I was obligated to call on dear Lady Harbury. I hadn't been there since her poor husband's death. I never saw a woman so altered. She looks quite 20 years younger. And now I'll have a cup of tea and one of those nice cucumber sandwiches you promised me.
Certainly, Aunt Augusta.
Won't you come and sit here, Gwendolen?
Thanks, Mama. I'm quite comfortable where I am.
Good heavens, Lane. Why are there no cucumber sandwiches? I ordered them specially.
There were no cucumbers in the market this morning, sir. Went down twice.
No cucumbers?
No, sir. Not even for ready money.
That will do, Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I am greatly distressed, Aunt Augusta, about there being no cucumbers. Not even for ready money.
It really makes no matter, Algernon. I had some crumpets with Lady Harbury, who seems to me to be living entirely for pleasure now.
I hear her hair has turned quite gold from grief.
It certainly has changed its colour, from what I, of course, cannot say. Thank you. I've quite a treat for you tonight, Algernon. I'm going to send you down with Mary Farquhar. She is such a nice woman and so attentive to her husband. It's delightful to watch them.
I am afraid, Aunt Augusta, I shall have to give up the pleasure of dining with you tonight, after all.
I hope not, Algernon. It would put my table completely out. Your uncle would have to dine upstairs. Fortunately, he is quite accustomed to that.
It is a great bore, and I need hardly say a terrible disappointment to me. But the fact is, I have just had a telegram to say that my poor friend Bunbury is very ill again. They seem to think I should be with him.
It is very strange. This Mr. Bunbury seems to suffer from curiously bad health.
Ah, yes. Poor Bunbury is a dreadful invalid.
Well, I must say, Algernon, that I think that it is high time that Mr. Bunbury made up his mind whether he's going to live or to die. This shilly-shallying with the question is absolutely absurd, nor do I in any way approve of the modern sympathy with invalids. I consider it morbid. Illness of any kind is hardly a thing to be encouraged in others. Health is the primary duty of life. I am always telling that to your poor uncle, but he never seems to take much notice. As far as any improvement in his ailment goes, I should be much obliged if you would ask Mr. Bunbury from me to be kind enough to not have a relapse on Saturday, for I rely on you to arrange my music for me. It is my last reception, and one wants something that will encourage conversation, particularly at the end of the season when everyone has practically said whatever they had to say, and which, in most cases, was probably not much.
I'll speak to Bunbury and Augusta. If he is still conscious, and I can promise you he'll be all right by Saturday. Of course, the music is a great difficulty. You see, if one plays good music, people don't listen. And if one plays bad music, people don't talk. But I'll run over the program I've drawn out if you'll kindly come into the next room for a moment.
Thank you, Algernon. It is very thoughtful of you. I'm sure the program will be delightful after a few expurgations. French songs I cannot possibly allow. People always seem to think they're improper and either look shocked, which is vulgar, or they laugh, which is worse. But German sounds a thoroughly respectable language, and indeed, I believe, is so. Gwendolen, you will accompany me.
Certainly, Mama.
Charming day it has been, Miss Fairfax.
Pray don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And I would like to be allowed to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into a room that I have often had to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, since I met you, I've admired you more than any girl I have ever met since I met you.
Yes, I am quite well aware of that fact, and I often wish that in public at any rate you had been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. Even before I met you, I was far from indifferent to you. We live, as I hope you know, Mr. Worthing, in an age of ideals. The fact is constantly mentioned in the more expensive monthly magazines and has reached the provincial pulpits, I am told. And my ideal has always been to love someone of the name of Ernest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. The moment Algernon first mentioned to me that he had a friend called Ernest, I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendolyn?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Ernest.
But you don't really mean to say that you couldn't love me if my name wasn't Ernest?
But your name is Ernest.
Yes, I know it is, but supposing it was something else. Do you mean to say that you couldn't love me then?
That is clearly a metaphysical speculation, and like most metaphysical speculations, has very little reference at all to the actual facts of real life as we know them.
Personally, darling, to speak quite candidly, I don't much care about the name of Ernest. I don't think the name suits me at all.
It suits you perfectly. It is a divine name. It has a music of its own. It produces vibrations.
Well, really, Gwendolyn, I must say that I think there are lots of other much nicer names. I think Jack, for instance, is a charming name.
Jack? No, there's very little music in the name Jack, if any at all indeed. It does not thrill. It produces absolutely no vibrations. I have known several Jacks, and they all, without exception, were more than usually plain. Besides, Jack is a notorious domesticity for John, and I pity any woman who is married to a man called John. She would probably never be allowed to know the entrancing pleasure of a single moment's solitude. The only really safe name is Ernest.
Gwendolyn, I must get christened at once. We must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely you know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you are not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I think it is only fair to tell you quite frankly beforehand that I am fully determined to accept you.
Gwendolyn.
Yes, Mr. Worthing. What have you got to say to me?
You know what I have got to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendolyn, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long have you been about it? I'm afraid you have had very little experience in how to propose.
My own one, I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Yes, but men often propose for practice. I know my brother Gerald does. All my girlfriends tell me so. What wonderfully blue eyes you have, Ernest. They are quite blue. I hope you will always look at me just like that, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing, rise, sir, from that semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama! I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finished what, might I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Pardon me, you are not engaged to anyone. When you do become engaged to someone, I or your father, should his health permit him, will inform you of that fact. An engagement should come on a young girl as a surprise, pleasant or unpleasant, as the case may be. It is hardly a matter that she pardon me, I'm getting so upset. She could be allowed to arrange for herself. And now I have a few questions to put to you, Mr. Worthing. While I'm making these inquiries, you, Gwendolen, will wait for me below in the carriage.
Mama.
In the carriage, Gwendolen. In the carriage!
Yes, Mama.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell. I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men, although I have the same list as the dear Duchess of Bolton has. We work together, in fact. However, I am quite ready to enter your name, should your answers be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I must admit I smoke.
I'm glad to hear it. A man should always have an occupation of some kind. There are far too many idle men in London as it is. How old are you?
29.
A very good age to be married at. I've always been of the opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you know?
I know nothing, Lady Bracknell.
I am pleased to hear it. I do not approve of anything that tampers with the natural ignorance. Ignorance is like a delicate, exotic fruit. Touch it and the bloom is gone. The whole theory of modern education is radically unsound. Fortunately, England, at any rate, education produces no effect whatsoever. If it did, it would prove a serious danger to the upper classes, and probably lead to acts of violence in Grosvenor Square. What is your income?
Between 7,000 and 8,000 a year.
In land or in investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. What between the duties expected of one during one's lifetime and the duties exacted from one after one's death, land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that could be said about land.
I have a country house with some land, of course. Attached to it, about 1,500 acres, I believe, but I don't depend on that for my real income. In fact, as far as I can make out, the poachers are the only people who make anything out of it.
A country house? How many bedrooms? Well, at that point it can be cleared up afterwards. You have a townhouse, I hope. A girl with simple, unspoiled nature like Gwendolen could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square, but it is let by the year to Lady Bloxham. Of course, I can get it back whenever I like at 6 months' notice.
Lady Bloxham? I don't know her.
Oh, she goes about very little. She's a lady considerably advanced in years.
Nowadays that is no guarantee of respectability of character. What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The unfashionable side. I thought there was something. However, that could be easily altered.
Do you mean the fashion or the side?
Both, if necessary, I presume. What are your politics?
Well, I'm afraid I really have none. I'm a liberal unionist.
Oh, they count as Tories. They dine with us. Or come in the evening, at any rate. Now to minor matters. Are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. Who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I'm afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me and gave me the name of Worthing because he happened to have a first-class ticket for Worthing in his pocket at the time. Worthing is a place in Sussex. It is a seaside resort.
Where did the charitable gentleman who had a first-class ticket for the seaside resort find you?
In a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. a somewhat large black leather handbag with handles to it. An ordinary handbag, in fact.
In what locality did this Mr. James or Thomas Cardew come across this ordinary handbag?
In the cloakroom at Victoria Station. It was given to him in mistake for his own.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station?
Yes, the Brighton line.
The line is immaterial, Mr. Worthing. I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it has handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decency of family life that reminds me of one of the worst excesses of the French Revolution. And I presume you know what that unfortunate movement led to. As for the particular locality in which the handbag was found, a cloakroom at the railway station might serve to conceal a social indiscretion. Has probably indeed been used for that purpose before now, but it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendolyn's happiness.
I would strongly advise you, Mr. Worthing, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible, and to make a definite effort to produce at any rate one parent of either sex before the season is quite over.
I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It's in my dressing room at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
Me, sir? What has it to do with me? You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter, a girl brought up with the utmost of care, to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a parcel? Good morning, Mr. Worthing.
Good morning. For God's sakes, don't play that ghastly tune, Algy. How idiotic are you?
You don't mean to say Gwendolyn refused you? I know it is the way she has. She's always refusing people. I think it is most ill-natured of her.
Don't hide behind that curtain, Algy. Come out. Gwendolyn is as right as a trivet. As far as she is concerned, we are engaged. Her mother is perfectly unbearable. Never met such a gorgon. I don't really know what a gorgon is like, but I'm quite sure that Lady Bracknell is one. In any case, she is a monster without being a myth, which is rather unfair. I beg your pardon, Algy. I suppose I shouldn't talk about your own aunt in that way before you.
My dear boy, I love hearing my relations abused. It is the only thing that makes me put up with them at all. Relations are simply a tedious pack of people who haven't got the remotest knowledge of how to live, nor the smallest instinct about when to die.
Oh, that is nonsense.
It isn't.
Well, I won't argue the matter. You always want to argue about things.
That is exactly what things were originally made for.
Upon my word, if I thought that, I'd shoot myself. You don't think there's any chance of Gwendolyn becoming like her mother in about 150 years, do you, Algy?
All women become like their mothers. That is their tragedy. No man does. That's his.
Is that clever?
It is perfectly phrased, and quite as true as any observation in civilized life should be.
I'm sick to death of cleverness. Everybody's clever nowadays. You can't go anywhere without meeting clever people. The thing has become an absolute public nuisance. I wish to goodness we had a few fools left.
We have.
I should extremely like to meet them. What do they talk about?
The fools? Oh, about the clever people, of course.
What fools?
By the way, did you tell Gwendolyn the truth about your being earnest in town and Jack in the country?
My dear fellow, the truth isn't quite the sort of thing one tells to a nice, sweet, refined girl. What extraordinary ideas you have about the way to behave to a woman.
The only way to behave to a woman is to make love to her, if she is pretty, and to someone else if she is plain.
Oh, that is nonsense.
What about your brother? What about the profligate Ernest?
Oh, before the end of the week I shall have got rid of him. I'll say he died in Paris of apoplexy. Lots of people die of apoplexy quite suddenly, don't they?
Yes, but it's hereditary, my dear fellow. It's the sort of thing that runs in families. You had much better maybe a severe chill.
You're sure a severe chill isn't hereditary or anything of that kind?
Of course it isn't.
Very well then. My poor brother Ernest to carry off suddenly in Paris by a severe chill. That gets rid of him.
But I thought you said that Mrs. Cardew was a little too much interested in your poor brother Ernest. Won't she feel his loss a good deal?
Oh, that's all right. Cecily is not a silly romantic girl, I'm glad to say. She has got a capital appetite, goes for long walks and pays no attention to all her lessons.
I would rather like to see Cecily.
I will take very good care you never do. She is excessively pretty, and she is only just 18.
Have you told Gwendolyn yet that you have an excessively pretty ward who's only just 18?
Oh, one doesn't blurt these things out to people. Cecily and Gwendolyn are perfectly certain to be extremely good friends. I'll bet you anything you like that half an hour after they've met, they will be calling each other sister.
Women only do that when they have called each other a lot of other things first. Now, my dear boy, if we want to get a good table at Willis, we really must go and dress. Do you know it is nearly 7?
Oh, it's always nearly 7.
Well, I'm hungry.
I never knew you when you weren't.
What shall we do after dinner? Go to a theater, perhaps?
Oh no, I loathe listening.
Well, let us go to the club.
Oh no, I hate talking.
Well, we might trot round the Empire at 10.
Oh no, I can't bear looking at things. It's so silly.
Well, what shall we do?
Nothing.
It's awfully hard work doing nothing. However, I don't mind hard work where there is no definite object of any kind.
Miss Fairfax.
Gwendolyn, upon my word.
Algy, kindly turn your back. I have something very particular to say to Mr. Worthing.
Really, Gwendolyn, I don't think I can allow this at all.
Algy, you always adopt a strictly immoral attitude towards life. You are not quite old enough to do that.
My own darling.
Ernest, we may never be married. From the expression on Mamma's face, I fear we never shall. Few parents nowadays pay any regard to what their children say to them. The old-fashioned respect for the young is fast dying out. Whatever influence I ever had over Mamma, I lost at the age of 3. But although she may prevent us from becoming man and wife, and I may marry someone else, and marry often, nothing that she can possibly do can alter my eternal devotion for you.
Dear Gwendolyn.
The story of your romantic origin, as related to me by Mamma, with unpleasing comments, has naturally stirred the deepest fibers of my nature. Your Christian name has an irresistible fascination. The simplicity of your character makes you exquisitely incomprehensible to me. Your town address at the Albany I have. What is your address in the country?
The Manor House, Woolton, Hertfordshire.
There's a good postal service, I suppose. It may be necessary to do something desperate. That, of course, will require serious consideration. I will communicate with you daily.
My own one.
How long do you remain in town?
till Monday.
Good. Algie, you may turn round now.
Thanks. I've turned around already.
You may also ring the bell.
You will let me see you to your carriage, my own darling?
Certainly.
I will see Miss Fairfax out.
Yes, sir.
A glass of sherry, Lane.
Yes, sir.
Tomorrow, Lane, I'm going to Bunbury.
Yes, sir.
I shall probably not be back till Monday. You can put my dress clothes and my smoking jacket and all the Bunbury suits.
Yes, sir.
I hope tomorrow will be a fine day, Lane.
It never is, sir.
Lane, you are a perfect pessimist.
I do my best to give satisfaction, sir.
There's a sensible, intellectual girl, the only girl I've ever cared for in my life. What on earth are you so amused at?
Oh, I'm just a little anxious about poor Bunbury, that's all.
If you don't take care, your friend Bunbury will get you into a serious scrape someday.
I do so love scrapes. They're the only things that are never serious.
Oh, that's nonsense, Algie. You never talk anything but nonsense.
Nobody ever does. And that is it.
That is it.
That was awesome, everybody.
Very
Theme.
fun. Very fun. I loved it. That was really great.
Everyone did so well, and I love Maggie being because I went online and I checked out her accent and everything. She did very well, and so
Oh my
did
God, yeah.
so did Christy. You were great, but I think the award needs to go to Lane, because I think that is the hardest part is to sit there and listen to all that dialogue and then go back out and queue and then listen to all that dialogue and not get lost. Because I know when I'm scrolling through this stuff, sometimes I get lost. I go, oh my God, I got to get back to where I am.
I'm always following you guys.
No, that was awesome.
You were both fantastic.
Everybody was.
Absolutely
funny.
fantastic.
Yeah, you were both.
Thank you.
So just for everybody who's on the chat watching, we have books to give away, free ebooks from each one of us. So if you comment before we sign off, you will be in the chance of getting a free ebook.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll look after that tomorrow. We'll just all individually go through the comments and pick one, and randomly pick one, however you want to do it, and we'll award an ebook that way.
Yeah, perfect. And a lot of us have I think all of us have more than one book. So we'll let you know which one it is, or you get to choose. It's going to depend on who you get.
Sure.
Yeah, you can do with me. You can certainly choose whichever one you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same with me.
Just on the very off chance that you maybe read one that you don't want to get it again.
I feel naked without my banana.
It's the wrong kind of oblong fruit, right?
Well, that's why I chose that music, especially for you, JD. Yes, we have no bananas. No bananas, we have none today.
Dave reminds me of the dancing frog in one of those Bugs Bunny commercials
Oh my
or
goodness,
cartoons. Yeah. And then when he tries to show the singing frog to his friends, the frog just goes.
Right. Hello, my baby. Hello, my
That's him.
darling.
Yes, he could do a little dance too. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So I would like to say thank you to everybody who tuned in today. That's awesome that you stuck around and watched the show, because it was kind of a long play. Like generally when we do live reads, they're about 15 minutes. This one went on for a good 45 minutes anyway. And but that was awesome. And I think you guys all pulled off your parts very well, and I think that kept them engaged. So,
And if you're looking forward to seeing the rest of this performance, we're going to be setting up a Patreon.
Yes, that would be good. But before we sign off, I just want to say thank you to everyone again. This is our 100th episode, and we started this. We kind of tossed it around in 2020, and in 2021, we kicked off in the first week of January, I think, or second week of January. And BJ Fournier was our very first guest, and I think Maggie was on there fairly soon into when we first started. And we brought JD in a little while later, and we've had both of them on for live reads since then. We've had so many amazing authors. We've had a narrator on here. We've had some cover artists. We really enjoyed talking to everybody. And going forward, we're still going to talk to the authors, but we're going to read more from the works as opposed to just talking to them. And so we're going to bring different authors in once a month, and we're going to do live reads from their books as well. So we'll do the same thing like we did tonight, and we'll get up in costumes and have props, and we'll live read from everybody the second Tuesday of every month going forward. So Lurking for Legends is changing its format. It is no longer going to appear every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. It's going to be the second Tuesday of every month. And so we can all get ready to get our costumes and stuff ready for the live read. So
just want to say one thing before we finish. Today is actually my anniversary with my wife. We've been together 24 years. So I just want to say to Hillary that I love you as much as I did when we first met. And Gwendolyn means nothing to me. Honestly.
Many blessings to you both. That was lovely.
Thank you.
That was beautiful.
So does Hillary like David or Ernest?
Jack.
Jack. Awesome. Happy anniversary, Dave and Hillary. That's awesome. So I will. I'm going on Amazon as soon as we get off here, and I'm going to get a medal for Hillary. Oh, Jack is on the outside voice for. But we got a lot.
Hillary says
tough choice.
Tough choice.
And Hillary, thank you to Hillary too. We've had a couple of people that have pretty well been with us all the way through, and Hillary's been one of those ones that are always in the background. And even though she's David's wife, she is. It's not easy always to come in here and devote time to listening to us talk to authors. And some of the authors might not be your genre or whatever, but Hillary's always been one of our people in the background. She'd ask our guest questions, and we very much appreciate Hillary doing so, because I think it makes our guests feel welcome and that they're actually doing this for a reason. So thank you to Hillary. And Wanda Janeway is another one that's been in here a lot. Alexander and Marie started coming in near the end. Thank you all for coming in. And JD, you're generally one of the ones putting comments in there. So we appreciate all our viewers as well, as you guys made the show last for 100 episodes. Without you guys, we wouldn't be doing it all. So before I leave, I just want to say thank you to all the viewers too. You are the ones.
Yes, thank you everybody who's ever showed up and left comments.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know how else to sign off. So I think we'll just say thank you very much for being with us. Yeah, we'll do a stage bow.
We'll be back next month then.
We will be back on March. I should have brought that up.
Let me see. I
It
think
is
it's
March
7th, isn't it?
No, March 8th. Oh, March 7th. No, it's March 14th.
Oh, is it March 14th?
That's
the second Sunday.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
And I believe we're coming on with Derek Bourne, are we not?
Might be.
Yeah, I should have had all that. I got it in the background here, and that just makes for great live video right now. But I believe it's Derek Bourne. He writes dinosaurs. He writes about dinosaurs. So we'll enjoy talking to Derek Bourne. If it's not Derek, I apologize to whoever it is going to be. But we'll get the
dinosaurs
soon. Yeah. But
well, hey,
Dave, yeah, you're going to be a dinosaur.
You get to be a dinosaur.
I look forward to one. Dave's got the best mask.
He does. Nobody can beat that.
Yes, he does.
No, we look forward to seeing Dave's dinosaur mask. Yeah. So anyway, thank you again, Dave and Christy. You guys have been amazing for 100 episodes, and I thank you for being here.
It's been a lot of fun.
It's been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, no, you guys are amazing. So I hope Derek's books are fun. That's for sure. Sorry, I'm just reading. I should put it on the screen. Anita Stewart's saying, I got so many screens going here. There we go. Dearest books are fun.
Yes, Wanda. Yes, Wanda.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts is seeing Dave come on screen. So,
Yeah.
and the neat thing about them doing live reads is a lot of times we go off screen halfway through the show and we change. So we have like live changes in the middle, and sometimes even that is fraught with a lot of fun. When my sticky note fell off that one day, you guys are laughing at me. Yeah,
I will never forget that. That was hilarious.
yeah, we're gonna have to do a best of. Caroline has talked about doing a best of and trying to piece it together, but there's just so much material to go through. We could compile something, it'd be really cool. So maybe that's something we can do in the future in post. But anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in, and congratulations on 100th episode, Dave and Christy. And thank you to Maggie and JD for coming in and celebrating the 100th episode. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes,
It's been so great having you.
So until we see everybody on March 14th, take good care.
Take good care. Good night.